Stand by for broadcast.
You're listening to Inside Air, a behind-the-wire view of the Royal Air Force, its people, technology and operations.
Hello, I'm Flight Lieutenant Peter Lisney, and in this episode we hear how fencing is shaping the military lives of two young aviators. We'll also reheat a few stories, just in case you missed them. But first, see if you can identify this noise. Find out if you're right at the end of this episode. Now, ceremonial swords are a common sight on parade squares. But how would you fare in a fight using a foil, epee or sabre? I asked two senior aircraftmen from the RAF Fencing Association what this niche sport means to them and how it transcends social boundaries.
I am from the back end of Liverpool. I was brought up a Scouser and was brought up to be proud to be Scouts. Be proud of my heritage, be proud of where I'm from.
It hugely contributes significantly to the warrior spirit that we bang on about as airmen and airwomen.
Stick at it, be passionate about it. It's one of those things that really will bring joy to your life.
SAC Matt, SAC Dan, thank you for joining us on Inside Air. We'll start with you, Matt. Tell us about yourself, your background, why you joined the Air Force and what's your sport?
Sure, thanks for having me on. So I joined the Royal Air Force in April 2018. I'd always wanted to join the military and I started learning to fly doing my PPL when I was about 14 and then increasingly got rather expensive. So I decided, well, why not join up and let the Queen pay for me to fly? But my original plan A, didn't quite go as I wanted it to. So I joined up as an air cartographer, and that's where I've been out of RAF Norfolk since November 2018, following Phase 1 and Phase 2 training. And whilst going through my Phase 2 training, based here at Number 1 Aeronautical Information Documents Unit at RAF Norfolk, I decided I wanted to try my hand at some sports that I had not done or I had done only a little bit of. So I turned my attention to the Sports Federation and decided to travel up to RAF Cosford for a beginner's session with the Royal Air Force Fencing Union. And then fast forward sort of 3.5 years through junior championships, senior championships and UK Armed Forces Inter-Service Championships, I find myself now as what we call the Director of Communications on the RAF Fencing Union Committee.
And it was through your role in the fencing organisation that you bumped into Dan, is that right?
That's right. So Dan and I always enjoy a good challenge on the piste, and Dan and I have recently returned from our RAF Championships, which we were lucky enough to hold this year after an 18-month hiatus where we battled it out on the piste again. And Dan was also very kind at accompanying me with various different Director of Communication roles throughout our following RAF Open, which is our public-facing event where we throw open the doors of RAF Cosford to over 350 people. And he assisted me with, again, all that public engagement and getting the RAF fencing face out there.
Play.
Now, Dan, I'm going to come to you now. You've been in a match against Matt. Do we call it a match? But who's the winner? Who's best?
It often turns into a brawl, I think.
Usually between you and me, Matt, definitely. Yeah, me and Matt have been fencing pretty much since Matt started with RAFU. So I myself joined up in August 17. I was an ex-air cadet and my father was in the Air Force 12 years as well. So joining the Air Force was always kind of like in the remit for me. I started fencing at a very young age and then took a 10-year hiatus, didn't really get into it. And then when I was about 16 again, I thought, you know what, I fancy taking it up again. Got in contact with my local club, for which there are hundreds up and down the country, got the kit and actually stuck at it this time. So I've been fencing for around probably about 8 years now, actually solidly doing it, and I've been on the circuit for around about 6 or 7 of those years.
So you were very much into fencing when you joined the Royal Air Force. And can I ask what age you were when you joined?
I was 20 when I joined. I had to think about that then. Yeah, I was 20 when I joined. I'm 24 now, so I've been in just over 4 years now. A similar time to Matt. And yeah, I was really into my fencing before I even joined up. And at Halton, I remember being asked, "Oh, what sports do you do?" And through that, I was streamed into RAFU almost. So
how long did it take you to compete for the Royal Air Force or in the Royal Air Force fencing circles?
So it took me a couple of years. I've always attended the juniors, the seniors, or the championships we call them now, and into services. Obviously, operational commitments do pull us a lot away from that sometimes. So I haven't been able to attend every event, but whenever I can and whenever work permits it, I've always been at these events. I haven't represented the Royal Air Force at the Triangular just yet. However, when I am on the open circuit, so fencing up and down the country at open competitions, I will fence under the Royal Air Force flag.
So let's go back to your day job, Dan. I understand you're stationed at Brize Norton. What is the job that you do there?
So, unlike Matt, I am completely opposite spectrum from what Matt does, in that I am an aircraft technician. I see off, see in, refuel, service, and try to fix aircraft down at Brize Norton.
And what type are you working on?
I am currently working on 70 Squadron, so Airbus A400M. Right,
okay. They've been busy recently.
We have been massively busy recently with everything with op pitting going on. We've had a number of aircraft, a number of lads working out there doing an absolutely tremendous job. And don't forget, it's not just us as well. The C-17s, the Voyager guys, we've all been, as a Group 2 force, working day and night, doing a fantastic job out and op pitting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I must say, we're all immensely proud of everything that you and your colleagues have been doing over the last month or so.
Thank you very much.
So, Matt and Dan, here you are. Yeah, you've found a sport, fencing. As far as people might look at fencing as being, let's say, an upper class sport, has anyone ever pitched that at you before?
100%.
What's your response to that?
Simply, it isn't. As you can probably tell, I'm not exactly well-spoken. I am from the back end of Liverpool. I was brought up a Scouser and was brought up to be proud to be Scouse, be proud of my heritage, be proud of where I'm from. So to those who think fencing is just an upper-class sport of hierarchy, very well-spoken officers who will go out of a night time and drink port, or you have to be, a dashing, beautiful, blonde-haired, physique man like in James Bond. It simply isn't true. Anybody can do fencing, no matter what level you're at. I never started out as Olympic-level athlete. Don't get me wrong, I'm not there now. But it is all about learning. You have to start somewhere, and civilian clubs and the RAF can both give you that basic foundation of where you need to be to then grow on those foundation bricks to get where you need to be.
If I may just sort of jump in and counter some of those points as well. Fencing has often had this stereotype held up against them because a lot of the kit is expensive, and therefore a lot of the public schools were able to fund procuring that equipment, and then therefore was able to give the opportunity to its students, and often those students would then therefore carry the sport on. But even though this is an image that for some unfortunate reason seems to have stuck over the history of the sport, it's absolutely something that both myself, our chair and our deputy chairman, and indeed our director of combat, who's in charge of delivering the RAFU events across the calendar, is an image we're trying to really move away from. And to the extent where a lot of our events now are beginner focused, We are absolutely a fun, inclusive and open to all organisation that will take on anyone from anywhere, no matter what your background is. And after all, as an organisation, the RAF is a meritocracy. Of course, Lord Trenchard formed the RAF Sports Board in 1920, which maintained and continues to maintain permanent staff that managed, directed and controlled RAF sport, that gave service personnel from across the whole force, as we continue to do to this day, the opportunity to try their hand at new sports. And of course, with the recent setup of the sports lottery and the central fund, and I come back to my earlier point about expensive kit, that is now an invaluable opportunity for service personnel, again, across the whole force, to utilise that publicly funded body and go out and get some kit. If they find a sport that they like, or sports that they like, go and get some of that kit for themselves, come back to the sport and re-infuse themselves about wanting to compete for the Air Force and potentially even further.
Right. Okay. And how have you seen this in reality when you go to training sessions? What, for instance, what is the gender mix that you have at RAF fencing events?
So I must admit, the last event that we ran, the RAF Champs up at RAF Cosford, was extremely diverse. I don't have the exact figures to hand, and of course every station club and every event will vary, as Dan said, depending on operational demands and availability, and of course line manager buy-in, which we all expect. But it's certainly something that we are seeing more women get involved in. As their friends come to these events, they realise that, you don't need to be some great big burly regiment officer guy who needs pure aggression. You can be of any shape, size, colour or creed to do this sport. And I've not necessarily set quotas. That's not really what we're about as an association. But as I say, it's about making it fun. And as long as you are willing to turn up, try your hand at any one or more of the three disciplines within fencing and enjoy yourself, get involved with the team and partake in some light-hearted competition and be willing to put some hard work in as well, then we're going to welcome you with open arms.
Okay. Look, I'm going to come back to Dan and talk football because, I've got to ask you, are you red or blue?
I am a red.
You're a red, right, okay. So what can fencing offer to someone who's football through and through? What is the attraction of fencing?
Honestly, I think this is a really good question. So when I was back in Liverpool, before I joined the Air Force, at the local club, there's a very good friend of mine, Paul, who is a bitter blue. He is blue through and through. No matter what you say, Everton will rule the world every day of the week. But me and him will sit there and we'll go on the piste, we'll have a bout, invariably I'll beat him, and then we'll go for a pint afterwards and talk about football. It's one of those things of, again, going back to what Matt said, no matter what your background is, we're such an inclusive sport. I know people from up and down the country, from all different sorts of background, and I'm not just talking about the RAF, I'm talking about the open circuit as well, who I have made friends with. And at the recent RAF Open that we held after the Champs, it was just amazing to see so many people there that I haven't seen in 18, 20 months, just being back there, from firefighters to nurses, bankers, just all sorts of different backgrounds, being there. And it's always good to have a bit of banter with the football as well, especially with some of the United fans and the City fans.
Well, I'm sure it is. Matt, for you, you're pretty new to the sport, or certainly newer to the sport than Dan. What was the attraction to you, and why should our aviators consider joining up with you guys and getting involved?
So fencing, to me, in the past has been described as like chess with swords. And if that doesn't satisfy everyone's dream, I don't know what will. Coupled with the fact that it's a very dynamic, as a very athletic sport, you're laterally moving up and down a 14-metre piece constantly. And you've always got to think 3 steps ahead. What's my opponent going to do? Where are they going to try and hit me on my target area? And throw in our warm-ups to that, and throw in all the protective gear on a hot summer's day, you really do get a sweat on. So it's absolutely not a sit-down play a game of chess, despite it being compared to one. I'd also say that, in terms of unit level sport and station level sport, it's a great team event. Recently at the Champs, we held what we used to call the 3 and 6 person event, but it's now the interstation trio and 6 person event. And that is an opportunity for units and teams or stations to come down and fight together and not only develop their esprit de corps, but also see themselves progress in their fencing talent. And every single year now, we are seeing different teams, different stations take home some silverware, because we know that they then go back home, and on a Wednesday evening from sort of 1700 to 2100, they're out training together as a team. And it's really good to see new faces come along onto that as well.
Okay. So I'm interested in what kind of appeal fencing would be to online gamers. Do you have any people that are really into their online gaming that are involved in fencing?
I actually quite am.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm part of the RAF esports for Formula 1 on the PlayStation.
Oh, brilliant.
We do a championship with Health for Heroes every week to raise money for their charity. And it is quite similar, but also the total opposite in some ways. The camaraderie we get from fencing is exactly the same you'll get in any team-based sport, online gaming type thing. You have to work together. You all sit there and have a laugh. And a lot of the part similarities is that you will have a laugh, you will have a joke, but there is a sense of seriousness to it as well, in the way that, of course, you want to win. No matter whether you're friends with them or not, you want to win, you want to beat them. That's just human nature, to be the better person. But on the opposite side, it's not being sat at home on my PlayStation 12 hours a day. It's actually encouraging people to get up, get moving, get fit, which, of course, we all want to do.
Okay, so it's a very quick-fire sport, I should imagine. When you get hit, do you respawn? I mean, how does that work?
Sort of, yes. It's very intense in that you are moving forwards and backwards, like Matt said, 14 metres up and down a piste. You can be literally from one end to the other in a matter of 10 seconds. But a knockout elimination, direct elimination we call them, is 9 minutes long, 15 points, and we split that down into 3-minute sections. So it does take a lot of endurance sometimes. By the end of that 9 minutes, you are, just a puddle of sweat sometimes. When you get hit, if the hit is on target, say, you will almost respawn back to your on-guard points, as we call them, which are 2 lines about a metre either way of the centre line.
I had a next-door neighbour some years ago when I joined the Air Force, and he was a champion fencer, and he was about 6'5". So I think he had very long arms. What are the physical attributes? Are there of a good fencer, and are there limitations on that front?
I'd say no, personally. No matter what height you are, no matter what body type you are, you can always have your own style. So referring to your friend who was 6'3", did you say?
He was tall. He just towered over me. I'm 6 foot and he towered over me.
I'm 4'9". So I'm, quite passionately known as one of the smallest people in NATO. And, I get it all the time. People back at Coningsby, where I used to be stationed, if they mention my name, they will automatically remember me because of my height. I was a standalone figure out there. Whereas I still do absolutely fine in fencing. No matter what height the person is, you adapt your style. Myself, I am a very defensive fencer. I will let people attack me, try to take their blade, get parries. I will try to counter-attack. Matt, on the other hand, from my opinion, is a more attacking fencer. He'll be more aggressive. He'll want to get in there, want to get that point early. So it doesn't matter about what height you are, what body style you are. A lot of it, as Matt referred to before, it is like a game of chess. It's all about your tactical game and how you're going to play it.
What is your opinion of where fencing fits into the Royal Air Force, and why is it such a good sport to be involved in?
I think I'll take this one. Fencing is constantly described as a niche sport, and I mentioned him earlier, my director combats and I spend sleepless nights trying to work out how to get rid of that image. And I think it boils down to this, and anyone that attends an RAF fencing event at whatever station, or indeed any sport, I suppose this could apply to, it proves how vital sport is to us for growing those soft skills, growing the leadership and the followership qualities that should be intrinsic in every service person. It enables that team spirit to be inculcated and for you to take that back to your home units and squadrons. And through this drive of diversity and inclusion, we can reach across the service and across the stations. And whilst engaging at a whole force level and reaching out to reserves, regulars, cadet forces, university air squadrons, prove that sport in the service is an integrated and essential element in the generation, in the maintenance and the development of operational capability. And it hugely contributes significantly to the warrior spirit that we bang on about as airmen and airwomen.
Okay. Dan, anything to add on that?
No, I completely agree. So, yeah, we do have people coming from all background types. Obviously, we do primarily come from the regular service, but we have got reservists that come through as well, people from DTIS. We're trying to get more people from the UAS coming through as well. So we are a massive, massive background of people from all different walks of life, from university students right the way through to pilots and engineers.
And Dan, your background as an air cadet, and you were fencing as an air cadet. We know we have air cadets listen to Inside Air. What can they look forward to in terms of taking their sport into the Royal Air Force?
So I didn't compete in fencing as an air cadet itself. That was a standalone thing that I did. However, obviously, when I've joined the Air Force as an actual regular and as many reservists, if they have a sport, carry it through. I know so many people from cadets who have joined up as reservists and as regulars or on the university air squadrons who do a sport. Stick at it. Be passionate about it. It's one of those things that really will bring joy to your life whilst being in the service. You know, the days are long sometimes. The days are difficult. You will get slogged through. I know mental health being such an important thing nowadays across the service. Sport is one of those really, really good reasons that I found myself to just be, okay, I finished work now, get down the gym and, you know, have a bout with somebody and just get down to training nights. Not so much let the aggression out almost, but just release a bit of stress and just get there, just for mental well-being mainly.
And if I may, I think I'd reach out both to cadets and indeed the regulars and reserves across the whole force and just reaffirm that authorised sport is a condition of your service that comes with duty status. It's a core activity that must be afforded the appropriate priority above other taskings if and where possible. And as Dan's covered off, it imbues a competitive spirit. It provides the inducement of physical and mental robustness, and also it supports the recovery and rehabilitation. And as Dan said, it provides a balance in the lives of personnel from the pressures of military commitments, whether at home, abroad, or on high-tempo operations. And it provides that valuable opportunity for decompression. And one thing I would finally say again to cadets and everyone else is to engender all of these qualities that public funding and time is made for and available for sports in the RAF. And this applies to everyone.
Do you know, you're both fairly new to the Royal Air Force, and I've spoken to lots of people over the years, and some of the complaints or concerns that people have not having time to go and participate in their chosen sport. And sometimes it can be difficult for line managers to release personnel from taskings because they're just overworked. What sort of support do you think there is now for people to participate in their chosen sport? Start with you, Matt.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, it is a condition of service, and the mentality that a lot of, let's say, middle management seems to have at the moment is that it's time away for sports and it's time out of the office. But that's that's not true at all. It's time for sport. You are on duty, you are proactively contributing to defence, and you will be returning unequivocally back to your unit a better person. And so I'd make a call to arms to line managers and individuals' chains of command to, as I said earlier, really encourage them to get out there. And if they want to try a new sport or continue to take their chosen sport further, then support them in those endeavours.
Thank you, Matt. Dan?
I echoes Matt's words in that sometimes it is really difficult for line managers. I've been in that position myself where I've had pushback from line management in that I can't get time off the sport because of manpower, because of where we are at on the course and so on. However, we are on duty. We're not going away for a weekend jolly type thing. We are on duty, and as Matt said, we do come back better people. We come back fitter people. We come back mentally rested a lot of the time. Sport shouldn't be, in my opinion, looked at one of those things as an inconvenience to the service. Sport should be looked at as completely beneficial, where people will go away, rest themselves, come back mentally healthier, physically healthier, a better person all round, and they may even learn more skills out there. So I'm trying to take on a bigger role within RAFU to help Matt with the media and communications, and to help with the Director of Combats on things like DT and organising competitions. So I will be able to take these skills that I have learned here and take them back to my workplace to help the workplace even better.
Where should our whole force go to find more information about fencing?
So anyone that wants to get involved in RAF Fencing can follow our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at RAF Fencing. Feel free to drop us a line or a DM and we'll get back to you as quick as we can. Failing that, you can go and visit our website via the Sports Federation /RAF Fencing. And of course, any member of your PED flight will be able to direct you to a point of contact on station or towards the Home for Sport or RAF Halton.
Thank you, Matt. Look, just to wind things up, I'm really interested to know, both of you, you're both young, you're both at the start of your careers. I'm interested to know what's coming next. What will Dan and Matt be doing in 5 years, 10 years' time? Dan?
For me, I'm a bit unsure on my plan. I am hoping to stay in the Air Force to do my 12 years type thing. From where I will go from being an engineer, I don't know yet. I may try and commission, or I may stay in the ranks and stay as an engineer. I'm not too sure yet. I've just got to wait and see what the world has for me, really.
And the fencing? Where are you going to take
fencing, I'm definitely staying with fencing. It's a sport that I passionately love and will be doing it for many, many years to come. Hopefully, with any luck this year, I'll make the triangular team if I can. And then from there, it's just improving my own fencing. These last 18 months with COVID has been tough on everybody, especially in sports. Obviously, we haven't been able to get through to anything. So, yeah, I'm just really looking forward to the next year or so, just properly hammering the sports down, getting back into it and getting back up to that level we need to be at.
Good stuff, Dan. And Matt, future for you?
Yeah, I'm definitely an advocate of service life. I like to think that I'll have a long and potentially illustrious career in the RAF. RAF fencing wise, I would like to continue building on my direct communications role. There's a lot I want to do in terms of merchandise and growing that ever closer union with our national governing body and some of our university clubs. Growing our numbers, recruiting more fencers into RAF fencing, and equally retaining fencers for us, ensuring that across the MOD establishments we are growing that coaching and training cadre, growing our in-house development, growing our potentially very high-profile athlete fencers, getting them out to competitions both nationally and internationally. Personally, in terms of the sports, I want to continue to develop and deliver these events across the RAFU calendar, if you like. I want to continue to fence myself. I have my eyes set on some UK Armed Forces fencing. There's an interesting trip that often comes up to Canada. I'd quite like to get my name down on that, but that could be a couple of years off for now.
All right, SAC Matt, SAC Dan. we all wish you the very best of luck for your future in the Royal Air Force, in your careers, and of course in your sporting endeavours. We look forward to seeing your name all over the RAF social media, winning trophies and doing great stuff. Thank you both for being on Inside Air.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Reheat on Inside Air. I'm LAC Victoria Andrews. Commemorative events have taken place across the 4 regions of the UK to mark the 81st anniversary of the Battle of Britain. In Northern Ireland, a Spitfire from the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight undertook a flypast over Carrickfergus, Belfast City, and lastly Ballykelly in the northwest of the province, where a commemorative stone was being dedicated to honour the Beaufort crew, part of Coastal Command, who crashed there on the 30th of April 1942. Elsewhere, the RAF Typhoon display team retraced the footsteps of the heroic Battle of Britain pilots by flying over the white cliffs of the southern British coastline. Flight Lieutenant Sainty described it as an honour, saying, "Looking down to see the stunning coastline and the pure whiteness of the cliffs, as the fighter pilots who fought in the Battle of Britain would have done many years ago, was an incredible experience." A pre-production example of the UK's Protector aircraft is taken to the skies as part of preparations for the arrival of Protector at RAF Waddington. Operating from the Lincolnshire station this summer, the Sky Guardian aircraft has undertaken a number of sorties, showcasing its impressive capabilities, while also providing vital information for personnel at the station preparing for the aircraft's permanent arrival in 2024. The RAF will be boosted by an investment of almost £400 million to enhance the capabilities of the C-17 Globemaster and the Chinook helicopter. The RAF's C-17 fleet will receive upgraded software and hardware to improve airlift capability. Meanwhile, our fleet of Mark V and Mark VI Chinook helicopters will be enhanced with state-of-the-art defensive systems, making them harder to detect by adversaries. And finally,
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
The RAF Rally Association had a strong showing at the annual Cunningham Cup this year, placing highest among the armed forces teams at the DST Leconfield Rally Course. That's Reheat on Inside Air.
I'm SAC Simon Ross with this episode's Name That Noise. That was the sound of the first C-17 Globemaster to return from Afghanistan as part of Operation Pitting. During August 2021, as operations in Afghanistan came to an end, more than 15,000 people were evacuated from Kabul airport to RAF Brize Norton, home of the Air Mobility Force. Troops, Afghani citizens and UK entitled personnel were all safely evacuated in what was the largest Royal Air Force airlift since Berlin in 1948. The whole force was on hand to give out food, drinks, toys and blankets to passengers arriving into the UK. Flying around the clock, the operation was successfully completed in as little as 2 weeks.
That's all for this episode of Inside Air. Please give us a review and subscribe on your favourite podcast app, and join us again soon.
You've been listening to Inside Air, a behind-the-wire view of the Royal Air Force, its people, technology and operations. If you're serving in the RAF and have a story for us, please speak to your unit media and communications officer. Inside Air is written and produced for the Royal Air Force by RAF Media Reserves.